What happens when fear stunts your growth and keeps you from moving forward? Tonight, we're talking with mental health advocate Brandie Johnson, who is going to be sharing with us some tips on how to move past your fears and grow forward. Brandie is a journaling enthusiast, designer, Bible lover, storyteller, resource sharer, and mental health advocate. She serves as the Director of Engagement at Cornerstone Crossroads Academy, a second chance high school for students ages 17 through 25. She earned her Master's of Art in Counseling from Dallas Baptist University and her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the University of North Texas. She's also the creator of the Identity Initiative, where Brandie encourages women to embrace and embody their identity in Christ in leadership, entrepreneurship, and everyday life. Brandie, thank you for joining us tonight.
Shantae, thank you for having me.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm well.
So tonight we are talking about how to overcome fear. Fear is something that every last one of us, it affects all of our lives in some way or another. And sometimes we cannot readily identify when we are reacting to fear, sitting in fear, being held by fear, and different things like that. So as we get started, I want to ask a question. As a mental health advocate, what is fear?
Fear is an emotion. It's something that we feel. It's also a response. We feel fear in response to an adverse situation, or what we believe to be an adverse situation. Sometimes we experience fear and it is grounded, it's reasonable. There's a reason we should feel fear. Sometimes we might be fearful of things that might not warrant it, but that's how we feel. We can be fearful of snakes and spiders. We can be fearful of heights. We can have a fear of death, a fear of falling. But that fear, what that is our emotional response. It can be in the face of something that actually happens, or even a thought. For example, fear of dying. We might feel that when we think of someone who recently passed away, and we're scared, about how that might happen to us as well.
Okay.
But it is how our minds and our bodies respond. That's what fear is.
And sometimes we react to fear. We have emotional fears that we don't necessarily recognize and identify.
Right. An example of that is a fear of rejection. We can't necessarily see that, but internally we feel this emotional response to the idea that someone would reject us, or if it does happen, we might be fearful that it could happen again down the line. And so you can't see those sorts of fears, but they are just as real as being fearful of things that you can see.
I'm already not, I'm going to tell you that I did not enjoy researching this topic, okay? And I knew that I wasn't going to enjoy it so much tonight because, no, seriously, because I found myself in I found some of the behaviors. I was like, ooh, there may be some fear. And I know procrastination and self-esteem and all those different types of things, when you pull the curtain back, there's that fear somewhere. So here recently, and we're going to get into it just briefly, we're going to talk about it. Okay. Here recently, you made a post in your on social media, and you were talking about how God had told you it was time to come out of hiding. And can we talk about that just a little bit, exactly what that was about and some of the fears that you experienced and how you began to overcome that?
Sure. Coming out of hiding was largely in reference to something that God was telling me to do. And that was to speak up. That was to use my words, to write, to do some videos, but to be vocal and share some of the things that he'd been sharing with me. And part of it was fear, and part of it was life circumstances, just feeling defeated and one thing after another. But when it came to the fear, a large part of that was feeling self-conscious, not feeling comfortable in front of a camera, not knowing what to say. Part of that links back to 10 years this year. 10 years ago this year, I experienced Bell's palsy, facial paralysis on the left side of my face.
Okay.
I've had a lot of recovery since then, but still feel self-conscious about it sometimes, to the point where I was like, I don't want to do video. Can I do anything other than videos, Lord? I don't want to do that. Perfectionism. So
yes.
Fear of getting it wrong, fear of people judging what I say, or being miscredited, or, imposter syndrome. Who am I to say this, to speak on this? And just all these different fears creeping in. I stayed quiet. I sat back and I did lots of journaling. I might have a conversation with someone, but I didn't go to the levels, to the lengths that I knew I should have. Yeah.
So one of the things that you said that you would do is you said that you would retreat and you would go back into a shell and shrink again. So can you kind of give me an example of what that looked like? When you say you would go back into your shell and you would shrink yourself, what exactly, what are some of the behaviors that you did that signify you were shrinking or you were retreating?
I'm an introvert by nature.
You can tell.
I can be extroverted. I can be in conversation, but I am very relaxed, very quiet, really chill. And me shrinking looked like being more comfortable in that space because this is natural. This is just who I am. Making that excuse of
being able to fall back that I'm an introvert.
Right. And this is my personality. Yes. This is just who I am. When
that's interesting.
We have these labels. We have these different ways that we identify ourselves, but is that consistent with what God is telling me to be? In this situation? No. But it looked like me making that excuse and saying, well, this is who I am. This is how I am. It also looked like me being inconsistent. And so I might pop up here and there. I might throw out a blog post. I might do a short video and then nothing for days and weeks and months until, okay, here's another one. And it's like, how can anyone catch on with what you're saying, with what you're sharing when...
And that was you retreating or shrinking. So first of all, my first question is, how did you identify that you were suffering, you were in fear and you were shrinking? What did you do? How did you recognize that?
I knew when it was happening.
As a mental health
exactly
expert,
what it was. But also I had to take some time to check in with myself. Like, I'm acknowledging, I'm noticing, okay, I'm going back for that next time. And it's like, it's been a minute. Or just thinking, this is uncomfortable, but I'm supposed to do it. So I need to get over this fear. I need to get over this resistance. That was another thing, just even feeling a general resistance to doing, any of these things. I'm like, I don't want to do it. And sometimes saying, I'm not going to do it, and feel a little disobedient in that. But taking inventory, just sitting and saying, okay, what is going on? Noticing these trends, noticing I've been really inconsistent with this. Why is this? I know this is somewhere that I need to spend my time and my energy and focus, but I'm not. Why is that?
So can I ask, what did you, when you pulled everything back, you pulled back all the layers, what did you realize the truth of, what was your fear?
There were a few. I think perfectionism, and that tied to a fear of failure. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to make a mistake. And I had to realize I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect, and I'm going to make those mistakes. But there was this fear of, I'm going to do this wrong. I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm not going to be able to come back from it. And it's just going to be a horrible, terrible, no good, like, it's going to be worse. You know, going to this extreme of, I'm going to mess this up. And I had to come to the realization that, like, that's not the truth. Again, a self-consciousness and just a fear of, how am I going to be perceived? I'm struggling within myself with self-doubt, with self-esteem, with appearance, with all these other things. I'm struggling to perceive myself correctly. How are other people going to perceive me?
Yeah.
That was a big one. Has been ongoing to get over.
Yes. And you know, so many people suffer with that. Even myself. You know, people see you and they like, oh, you're so confident and you do this so well, but I struggle with self-esteem and, oh, can I really do this?
Yeah.
How have you, and I know that it's an ongoing journey.
Definitely.
We every time we think have arrived, we really haven't.
No.
Because there's a new level and it's something deeper. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What are some things, what are some tools? And we're going to talk about we're going to talk about journaling, because I know that you're really big on journaling. But what are some of the tools that you've used just this small aspect of helping you overcome those self-esteem, that self-doubt, that all of those different types of issues that got you to, okay, I'm sitting down and doing it?
I'd say in general, faith is a big one for me.
Yes.
That's been a help. So prayer, meditating on scripture, and specific ones related to those things, those concerns that I've had, those fears, those challenges, reminding myself of those things, journaling, as you mentioned, taking the time in the moment to stop and acknowledge what I'm feeling, and just sitting with it and, okay, why am I feeling this? I feel good about doing this. What makes that different from previous times? Or there is this challenge, there is this resistance. What is that about? Okay, now what do I do with that? Is this true?
Yes.
Is it false? If so, let me put it in its place and move forward. There are three things that I've been focused on recently: believing, being, and doing.
Ooh.
What am I believing? Is what I believe true?
Okay.
Because here's what I'm believing based on my behaviors, based on how I'm acting, based on how I'm moving. Here's what my actions are saying I believe. Is that true or not? Because sometimes it is, and then sometimes it is the furthest thing from the truth. Next is being. And for me, it's, who does God say I am? Am I being that person? Here's what his word says. Romans 8 is a passage that I've, from start to finish, gone through. One verse that's kind of been on repeat is Romans 8:9. It says, however, you are not of the flesh if you are in the spirit. And so just sitting, like, God says I'm in the spirit. Am I being that person right now? Am I walking by the spirit? God says that we are more than conquerors. Am I being
a conqueror right now?
Yes. And then doing, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing that thing? If not, what's the holdup? If so, great, keep doing it. But like, I've had to check in with myself with those three areas, and a bit of that is journaling, and then sometimes even just my voice notes on my phone. Like, okay, here's my check-in. Am I here? How am I doing this? Okay, let's move forward. But some self-talk, having to talk through those things.
And that's what we're going to talk about that a little bit more, because I absolutely love that. Believing,
being,
and doing. Believing, being, doing, and just self-checking yourself. I love those three. And I think in a way, I probably use some of those myself when you're walking yourself through some of these things so that you can move forward. Yeah. So one of the, as we've been talking about overcoming negativity and moving into a positive mindset, you will agree with me that to overcome fear, mindset is really, really, really important. One of the things that we have, one of the tools that we've talked about, and you just touched on it a little bit, was reframing. How do we, how do we tell ourselves a different story? And I think what you were saying is when you said, "Is this true?" And if it isn't, what's the, basically what's the story that I'm telling myself? Can you kind of talk us through that a little bit and how reframing helps you move from a state of stuck to actual movement?
Oh goodness, I'm gonna try not to cry right now.
Oh, if you want to cry, you can cry. We ready for you.
I'm thinking right now about a time where I've really had to reframe some things. Last year, last July, August, I experienced a miscarriage. It was a missed miscarriage, no signs of it at all. Went in, got an ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat. And so that's how we found out. But there was nothing, no way to know, nothing happened. Like, I had no idea. And initially my response was, okay, everything's fine. But as things went on, everything was not fine. And I had all these questions, and I kind of teetered between, was it something that I did, something that I didn't do? Was it my fault that this happened? But also, like, anything could happen. But I found myself, I kept going back to maybe I did something.
You started telling yourself
wrong.
A different story.
And I started thinking and believing, okay, maybe I could have done this differently. And I really had to reframe that and realize, like, there was nothing you could have done. There was nothing you did wrong. And I had to really sit with that. And it was challenging because it was over about a month between learning that I lost the pregnancy and actually experiencing the miscarriage. And during that time, it was just this constant battle of having to reframe, having to really just sit with, like, there's nothing you can do here.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you could change. This is where you are. This is challenging. It's hard. It hurts. But, like, don't put this on yourself as if you're at fault for this happening.
And, first of all, I'm really sorry about I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. One of the things that I think fear and negative mindsets do to us is it makes us see ourselves in a totally different way.
Right.
And we begin to speak to ourselves in a way that lessens who we are, or, as you said earlier, lessens who God has declared us to be. And then again, we don't even realize it that we stop moving, because it's so easy to, I call it, of course you call it a rabbit hole, but it'll take you down and into a pit. And one thing leads to another, and when you really get the wrestling down up in there, those thoughts get to really messing with you. How have you been able to monitor your thoughts and control your thoughts and redirect your thoughts from going into that negative mind space and coming back into a more positive atmosphere?
One of the biggest ways that I've been able to do that is through prayer. In those moments, going to God and saying, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm feeling. I know this isn't true. I know this isn't of you, but I'm struggling. I need your help. One of the prayers in the Bible, short and sweet, one of the statements, but a prayer, help my unbelief.
Yeah, my favorite.
And that's one that I've, you read it, but like I have had to use it and just say like, Lord, I'm having trouble believing this right now. I need your help. I need you to help me out with this. Having trusted relationships. I have my husband, I have some of my closest friends, I have my mom, being able to talk to them about things, just sharing like, I'm having a hard time with this. I'm struggling with this situation, and them just encouraging me and reminding me like, this is who you are, this is what you're capable of. I want you to know this is what's true.
Yeah.
That's always really helpful to hear from them. It's one thing to be in your head, but also to be able to hear from others, and getting the right voices, getting the right words, getting the right thoughts is really helpful.
And you actually are touching on a point that I was going to get to a little later, but another one of the keys that we've talked about on overcoming that negative mindset and moving forward, which you can use again in fear, anything to this effect, is changing your language. Yes. It's very important. And another one that you hit on was your environment. Because your environment matters.
Definitely.
And who you talk with matters, and the type of words that they use matter. And just really going back to changing your language, what type of language? And we're not talking about the miscarriage, or I guess we can put it all in. But I'm really focusing on when you were stepping out of your fear and coming into even being here today, because you don't like to be on camera. As you've been working to overcome that fear and do something new, right? What was your language? What were some of the words that you used before, and now, and once you stepped over the line, or crossed over the bridge, what are some of the words that you use now? Like, how has your language towards yourself, towards the situation changed?
One of the main words at that time was can't.
Okay. We all love that word.
I can't do this. I don't have this, but just focused on lack. My language was centered around lack.
That's interesting. Okay.
And there were all these objections, all these excuses, but I don't have the right equipment. I can't do this. I don't have the time. I can't, and I don't. Any way you could put it, right? I work full time. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. Like, time was a big excuse, but it's like, what are you doing with those pockets of time when you're sitting watching TV, when you're scrolling social media?
Yeah.
I don't have the right equipment. You have an iPhone to get started, and you can do a whole lot with that thing. Could you have better equipment? Yes, but also, like, can you start right here, right now with what you have? But yes, can't. Like, anything that you could put with that.
That was your talk.
Yes.
I think that is that's some of everybody's talk. So how did you and I'm gonna guess that it was asking yourself these questions. How did you begin to change your language, or how did you even, in fact, this is a good one. I know sometimes I just come up with these questions. How did you recognize the language that you were using, and then how did you start? Okay, I could start using these new words And what did you realize? What was the manifestation of those new words that begin to come out of your mouth? Because and I say this because a lot of people can't is part of our natural everyday language. And sometimes you don't even realize that you're saying it and that you're putting yourself down and you're placing yourself in a box. And you have to get to a point of awareness that I use this word, I'm using this word a lot, and this word is not taking me to where I want to go. And so I want to help our audience become aware of some of the words that they use and the power of those words and how they can change their language by replacing them with some new words. I said a lot.
I was doing an activity, and I'm trying to think of which book it was in, but it was a marketing activity. The author is Mira Kothan, and she has several books, so I can't recall which one I was in, but it was before and after. It was so simple, but she was asking, what is going on for your audience before? What does it look like after when they've worked with you? And the thing that I was looking to work with them on was something that I was struggling with myself. And so I wasn't trying to come to them as like, I'm this expert, I've got it figured out, let me tell you all the secrets. It was, I'm going through this too, let's walk together.
Okay.
And so I'm going down the list before, and I'm not eloquent enough, I'm not, this and that, but I'm going down the list before. These are some of the thoughts, these are some of the feelings. After, what do we want to see after? Right now you're saying you're not enough, but what does it look like on the other side? And so I'm going through this activity, and I'm realizing some of this is my very own language. These are my very own thoughts, and I need to change that. So part of it was writing it down on paper and seeing it, but just walking through that simple activity showed me, hey, you gotta switch this up, especially if you're wanting to support others in this, but even for yourself, you're looking at this and you're saying, I can't do video because I'm too nervous. Practice. Get comfortable, do it,
and fly, and that's what you've been doing. How does it feel?
Still feels a little nerve-wracking, but better, I guess. We try things, we do them, successively. We practice, and it gets better.
That is the one thing that I've learned, even when I think about us starting this show and the level of fear that has set around it. And we make so many mistakes. We make so many mistakes. And one of the reasons, I was hesitant to even start the show. I was like, I didn't realize that it was fear, but I'm like, I need to be perfect and everything needs to be perfect. And I didn't realize that you get perfect along the way. You have to start, and you just keep making adjustments as you go, and that becomes the beauty of it. But that's how you get out of being stuck and begin to move forward. We are getting ready to wrap up this first part, and I'm going to open it up to our audience so that they can ask you a few questions. But as we get ready to do that, I want to because I'm going to ask you a different question on the end of this. But for that person who is right now struggling to start something because of their fear, what is something that you would recommend that they do to start working to overcome those fears?
If you can, just do it. If not, find a way to practice or simulate what that thing is that you're wanting to do. For example, if it's video, start recording yourself. You don't have to put it out anywhere. You don't have to send it to anyone, but just practice getting in front of the camera, getting your setup together. If it's writing, spending time developing your writing practice. It doesn't have to be anything that you share, that you put out into the world, but start somewhere and just continue. Just like walking. Take that first step, take the next one, you continue putting one foot in front of the other. And then you're going places.
Then you are going places.
Yeah.
That will take you, and I'm just to just punt it in right there. It will take you to the next level, because consistency is one of our pillars, and you just described being consistent and starting and then just keep going, no matter what the step looks like. I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, so we will be right back as we get ready to open up for questions and answers. What happens when fear takes over your life and stops you from growing? Tonight, we've been talking with mental health advocate Brandie Johnson, as she's been walking us through how to overcome fear and grow forward. And now we're going to begin to take some questions from Brandie from our audience. All right, Brandie, here we go. All right. Okay, question number 1. What is your advice for those who feel defeated in their faith? They feel so overwhelmed and feel God has abandoned them. How can they work their way back?
Wow.
They started out hard on you.
I say talk to him. Start by talking to him. God is a God of relationship, and I think that when we spend time with him, when we rid ourselves of distractions, we can hear from him. I think that's a starting point. That question was deep, but I think you start there. I think too, spending time in the Word helps. And you're able to see sometimes other situations that might be similar to yours, and you're able to see just more of who God is and how he moves. You get to know his character better. It helps you draw close, and one of the things that he tells us in his word is that when we draw close to him, he draws close to us as well.
Right. Okay. We have friends that mean well and say things like, things will get better. Time heals all wounds. But in moments, it feels so dark and empty. And that advice is great, yet so lonely. I think they're not finished with their question. Okay, so I'm gonna let them finish typing their question. I think I jumped ahead while they were finished. One of the other questions is, what is your advice for helping someone who has a fear and they do self-sabotage? How do they get past self-sabotaging? How do you first of all, how do you identify that I'm in a pattern of self-sabotage, and how do you get past that? Or what is your advice for some ways to overcome that so that you can move forward?
Sometimes that can be really hard for other people to see. Like, we might notice it with a friend, with a loved one, but it can be hard for them to see. I think being mindful of how you mention it to them is really important. And that can differ depending on who that person is and how they receive information. Because for some people, you might need to be delicate in addressing that and saying, hey, I notice, you're kind of walking on the wild side. You right there on the edge. You about to fall over. And I don't want to see you do that. And some other people might need you to be harsh and be like, yo, what is this? I need you to stop. So know your person, know how they might receive you and how to approach them. And either way, be gentle. Don't be accusatory. Don't cause them to feel bad about what's going on, because that's not going to help them if they're self-sabotaging. And sometimes even bringing it up doesn't mean it's going to end there. So be prepared to speak on it, but also know it might take some time for them to really acknowledge it and receive it and be able to move from that. And sometimes you might need to call in reinforcements, get some help outside of yourself to help them address what's going on. Depending on what the level of the thing is, you might need more intense help.
And I'm just to just piggyback on this question that they had, but when I myself realize, okay, I've been engaged in a pattern of behavior and I'm self-sabotaging my own happiness or my own business or my relationships. What is something that I can do? Just one thing, or maybe two or three things, because we self-sabotage quite a bit. What is something that I can do to help me stop self-sabotaging or recognize? Because sometimes you can't even recognize, but something to help me stop just stop, Shantae. Or you know what I'm saying? It's not enough to just say stop, Shantae, but what is something that I can do to help me with that?
You mentioned it earlier, mindset. So having in mind that you're going to do differently is a starting point, but that's not enough. You got to start there. And sometimes it's taking inventory, checking in, taking a look at, okay, what is going on? What am I doing? Every time I do this happens. Noticing the patterns. So taking time to stop and examine yourself, examine your life is a starting point, because sometimes, like you said, we don't notice these patterns. We're just going and doing. We're not paying attention to what we're doing. So taking that time to stop and notice, but also checking in and saying, okay, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Sometimes we can stop and identify why we're doing these things. Sometimes it might be a little more challenging, like this is happening, but I don't know why I do this. And sometimes you need some help figuring that out, but sometimes we don't take the time to look at ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good starting point. Making up your mind to do different. Before you can do different, it starts with making up your mind to take that step. So I've been talking about needing to lose about a good 10 pounds for a while now. And it's one thing for me to say, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. But for me to change the way that I eat, for me to stop being so sedentary, start moving more, like that requires action. And so with self-sabotaging, a big part of that is looking at, okay, what action can I take? How can I move differently? How can I do something different from what I've been doing that's going to give me a different result?
And one of our pillars is awareness. And before you can make any change, you have to stop. You have to become aware.
Yes.
As you just said, you have to take inventory and check yourself. We ask the question, where am I? Where am I, and how is this benefiting me? Okay, see, I got going that I forgot to come ask so many questions. Okay, how did you overcome perfectionism, and and this is two-part.
Okay.
How did you overcome perfectionism, and how did you let yourself let go?
It's a process that is still
it's still working it through.
Progress. I think a big part of it is, like, I have done so many things that no one in the world knows about, that I just am sitting on. Maybe a friend knows, maybe my husband knows, so many things. And sometimes I'll see other people do something similar, and not to be prideful or judge or anything, but I'm like,
I did
yeah,
that.
come on, I can do better than that. And it's like, but no one knows because you got it tucked over here away, so no one has ever seen it. So that has been a challenge where it's like, okay, you've done these things, but no one knows. It's better for you to put it out into the world, to share it, to make it known, than to just sit and stack up all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what is it doing for you? So that was a big thing for me. And then being okay with making mistakes, knowing mistakes are not final in the sense that like I'm ruined, I can't come back from this, but like I can make a mistake and I can learn and grow from it. One of the things that helped with that was working on this first journal. It was the first thing that I like put out, went through designing it, writing it, publishing it, marketing it, the whole process. And with designing it, the first couple of rounds, there were small mistakes and edits that needed to be made. I made changes in the size, I changed the design, but at the very beginning, I was working on it, and I was like, I need this to be perfect. And I set it down for a little bit.
Oh.
I started working on it over a year before I actually shared it, before I actually got this print copy in this format. But once I picked it back up, I started editing it. I started getting samples. Okay, don't like this. I need to change this. I made this mistake here. And I got in this flow, and it's like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but let's get it good enough to where it can be shared.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Similar to self-sabotage, how do you deal with or overcome losing your voice / being silent or not doing things due to a feeling of imposter syndrome?
Okay, I'm going to share what this has been like for me recently. God has used other people to speak to me about the importance of using my voice.
Okay.
And just in recent months, I've had about 3 people say, like, hey, you need to get after this. You need to do this. You need to speak up, and you need to do it now. And so I think here recently, I've felt this sense of urgency of, this is what I need to do. I need to use my voice. And it's been a mix of people I know and people I don't know speaking to me about it. And I'm like, okay, I need to stop being quiet. But part of that too has been just reflecting on what happens if I don't.
Oh.
Because it's one thing, again, to come up with the objections and to say, this is too hard, I can't do this, I don't have this. But what happens if you don't do that thing? Or what doesn't happen if you don't do that thing? And thinking about that, it's like, I don't want that.
Responsibility on you.
Yeah. And I'm more willing now to use my voice, to use my words, and have that responsibility to do what I need to do rather than not.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay. And they got a lot of them, and we're running out of time. Okay. How do you, this is probably our last one. You may have to answer these quick. How do you overcome your fear of letting go of relationships after you realize they have served their purpose, but you don't want to hurt others? I know they're getting all up in you.
Where do I start with that? I think it kind of ties back into the last response of like, what happens if you continue down that same path? If you hold on to that relationship that you know is no longer serving, it served its purpose, there's no reason for it to continue. If you continue to hold on to that, it could be detrimental. It could be detrimental to you, to the other person,
to the people you're meant to serve.
Right. And so I think looking objectively at, okay, what happens if I keep going this way with this relationship? And also realizing, okay, the purpose has been served. We're appreciative of the person and the purpose, and now it's time to make room for what's next. I think, not to say don't make it personal, because it is personal. Relationships are very personal and intimate, and can be delicate things. We don't want to overlook that, but also if it's time for you to move, then you got to prepare yourself to move.
Yes. And that's not always easy.
It's not.
Okay. All right. So we have one more question. Okay. If you are a cheerleader for those who lack confidence and have overwhelming fears, how can you continue to walk in truth when your strength has been stripped from serving? Baby,
Man,
who is glad that I'm glad you in the hot seat. Would you like for me to read that question again?
Yes, please.
If you are the cheerleader for those who lack confidence and have overwhelming fears, how can you continue to walk in truth when your strength has been stripped from serving?
You have to fill your cup.
Tell it. Go ahead and tell it, girl. Tell it.
If you know what it is that will do that for you, do that thing. Easier said than done, but making time, putting resources toward it, whatever that is for you, you need to be strengthened. And so that looks like you taking the time to get what you need. Whether that is connecting with another person that can help you in that way, whether that is, something recreational that you do. If you enjoy swimming, if you enjoy painting, if you need to go for a hike, whatever that thing is for you, invest your time and energy in yourself by doing that thing. If it's resting and taking some time to do nothing, sometimes it's good to take a sabbatical. Sometimes it's good to rest and step away from everything so that you can refresh yourself, and then come back strengthened to do the work again. And that can look like taking a technology break, putting the phone down, putting the computer down, not answering all of the questions or doing all the things. That could look like getting away, taking a trip, taking time apart from serving in that capacity. But making that time for you to be refreshed and to be strengthened is so important that you got to do it. Again, if there's a person that can support you in that, connecting with that person, letting them know so that they can help you, and hold you accountable to make that happen.
All right. And we have, okay, I'm gonna give us one more question. Hold on, wait, I'm gonna give you one more question, because I really, you are brave and courageous for all you have worked through and seeking to do different. Was it difficult for you to reach out to others for help in the beginning prior to your growth and elevation and evolution?
Yes.
How did you overcome that?
I think it was hard for a few reasons. I am a person that a lot of people come to. So by my education, by just me being a listening person, I have a lot of people that will come to me with things, and sometimes I want to be present with them, but I have this load myself, and I try not to burden other people. Sometimes it's shame even of I don't want to have to express this to someone else, because I'm struggling with it myself. And I had to go to those people that I know. And sometimes I feel like I can do that. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard. But say like, hey, this is where I am. You know, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable is a really hard thing to do, but it can really work out sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Like, I'm not gonna lie and say like 100% of the time that works in our favor. But a lot of times when we are vulnerable with people that love and care about us, it's helpful. It's beneficial.
It benefits us. So let's, we have a few minutes, and I want to make time for you to talk about the Identity Initiative. Tell us briefly about that, and then I want you to tell us a little bit about your journals and some of the journals that you have. And we are actually going to be giving away one of Brandie's journals on tonight. But tell us about the Identity Initiative, and you have something coming up that just tell us about it.
All right. The Identity Initiative, it started from my own identity journey, but I help women grow in their identity in Christ. And that is in leadership, entrepreneurship, and just everyday, day-to-day life. There are three things. There's something with me in threes. But there are three things that like the Lord has just really pointed me to. Identity starts with intimacy. Identity in Christ supersedes all else, and identity leads to intentionality. When we know who we are, we can live that out more intentionally. And so my goal is to help more women do that. With intimacy with God, one of the main ways that I focus on that is through journaling. There are so many ways you can do that, but one that has been big for me has been journaling. And so coming up, I have a journaling workshop. I am so excited about that. First one's at the end of this month, and I'm working to do a series of those throughout the rest of the year.
And how can someone connect with you?
You can connect with me through social media on Instagram at Brandie A. Johnson or at The Identity Initiative. On Facebook, The Identity Initiative, and then on the website at theidentityinitiative.com.
And you have quite a few journals available for sale. Are they on Amazon? Can you get them on Amazon?
This one's on Amazon, and I'm working to add the other ones.
Okay,
but that one right now.
But you can also get them
journalingwithgod.com. You can also get to Journaling with God from the main, the Identity Initiative website, but journalingwithgod.com is where you can find all the journals and where you'll be able to register for the workshop. Okay,
y'all hear that? Go and order you one. I'm a huge journaler. I mean, that's all I do. And tonight, you have gifted our audience. You have gifted a lucky winner with this journal, the With All Your Heart journal, 31 days of loving, trusting, and seeking God wholeheartedly. And tonight's winner is Lauren Fisher. Lauren, you are the winner.
Congratulations.
Of tonight's Business Spotlight and this journal. Brandie, I want to thank you. I do. I want to tell you that whatever level of nervousness and insecurity that you have about speaking in front of people, that's just all an illusion, because you are an absolute natural. And you have done such a spectacular job and have just educated me so well and withstood the test of these hard questions from the audience.
Those were hard.
They were hard, but you did it. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time and joining us on tonight. I want to thank our entire audience for joining us on tonight as we've been talking about how to overcome fear and move forward. Brandie has given us some amazing tips, and you will be able to download this video as well as catch some of our prior series. You can follow us on YouTube We've changed the name at NexLevel.org, where we release a new episode every week. We've been doing a series on overcoming negativity. We've been sharing stories. We've been talking with amazing women and giving you so many tools to help you move your life to the next level. Also want to remind you all to download NexLevel magazine, where it is once again filled with so much amazing information, how to get from where you are to where you want to be. It's the roadmap to your next step. Finally, I want to encourage you all. We are within our last couple of days of our 75-day challenge. If you have not joined us, I suggest you jump in and join us these last 5 or 6 days. It ends on Sunday. Hashtag NexLevel75. We have been doing what Brandie was talking about, practicing consistency, because that is our goal. We desire to see you win. And finally, I want to ask you guys to do something for me. If you have been blessed tonight, if you have been blessed by anything that Brandie has said, because she has been filling us with so many good nuggets, I want you to do what I'm starting to call the Next Level 5 in 1. I want you to tell 5 people one thing that impacted you on tonight. Share it with 5 people. Go spread the word. An idea takes life because of people who are willing to spread it. And so I want you to share something that touched you with 5 people. Facebook is 1. Instagram can be 1. YouTube, tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your sister, tell your brother. But share one thing that impacted you on tonight, that affected you on tonight with 5 people. And let's spread how to overcome fear and move forward. Until next week, I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to remind you to go check out some of the other shows on the Win-Win Women Network. We are here to see you win. I love you all, and good night.